Thank you for joining us. We've got an hour booked in. We might not take an hour. It depends how many questions you have. So yeah, but just again, for those that have since joined, I'm Jen. I'm Head of Fundraising and Partnerships at NEA. So thank you for joining us today. We have a presentation from one of our business supporters group members, Ceri, who is from E.ON. She's the Strategic Innovation Manager at E.ON. And I've asked her to come and do a presentation on our Homes for Living programme, which is really interesting. I've met Ceri a few times and we've chatted about it, and it's really something that I think many of our members will be really keen to find out more around and how they can get involved or potentially take forward similar programmes in the future. So we've got 43 participants joined, which is a really good number so early in the session. Brian will keep admitting people in the background, but I'm going to hand over to Ceri to do some slides. We will come back after the presentation and we will have time for questions. So please either put something in the chat, or if you want to hold it till the end, then please do. We'll have time to be able to ask Ceri any questions, and her contact details are all going to be shared on the PowerPoint presentation, but also we'll circulate the presentation to all of the members after the session. So don't worry about frantically taking too many notes, and just enjoy the presentation. And if you're not on mute, if I can ask you to go on mute during the presentation, just so we can eliminate any background noise as well. So Ceri, I'll hand over to you. I can see we've got the presentation up there, and I'll mute myself and let you take us through the presentation. Thank you.
Fabulous, thank you. And just to double check, can you see it in presentation mode?
We can, yes.
Good. Fabulous.
Perfect.
So really lovely to be here, and so thank you Brian and Jen also for inviting me to come along and share the work that we've been doing at E.ON, but also to everyone else on the call who signed up also to learn more. But today I'll be focusing on Homes for Living, which highlights a remarkable opportunity for accessing homes, and particularly those vulnerable people who come through our eco channel. So that's energy company obligation, as I'm sure you know. But this is all about demonstrating that if we can offer support to people early enough, the outlook on someone's life can actually be really significantly improved, and in doing so reducing the pressure on healthcare, but also those loved ones as well. So my name is Ceri Roberts, and I'm a Strategic Innovation Manager, and I work in Green Funding Solutions at E.ON. Now, I've been at E.ON for quite some years now, albeit I started when it was East Midlands Electricity Days. It wasn't my original plan to go and work at an energy company, particularly as my early studies were actually in health and social care, and I planned to take up a career in occupational therapy. I'd spent many a time and many an hours in residential care and homes working as a care assistant, and really getting involved with the residents there, but also working in multidisciplinary teams at the local hospital, which is where all part of my placements. And my gap year turned into 27 years, and I'm still here at E.ON. So my profession has primarily been in data around business intelligence, project management office, and leading multi-million-pound programmes. But it was actually whilst in my current role that I was made aware of an opportunity for E.ON to support the UN's Decade of Healthy Ageing Collaborative. So this launched originally in 2018. And there was a £300 million investment, which was split into several challenges. And one of them was called the Healthy Ageing Grand Challenge. So I'm not sure that my business were fully prepared for the left field perspective that I offered. But here we are, and they're a massive fan and massive support of the work that I've been doing over the years. So the industrial strategy supported the mission statement. And that was for people to enjoy an extra 5 healthy, independent years of life whilst narrowing the gap between the richest and the poorest. Now, this is a really, really difficult mission to deliver, which is why I invested the help from Newcastle University, and I'll share a bit more of that later on. But one thing was for sure, E.ON has access to some of the poorest residents across the UK, and this was really critical to really demonstrating that access to homes plays an important part in helping to address some of those customers' basic needs, but also their unmet needs, and providing that route to get the additional help as well. So before I go into what Homes for Living was all about, really just to paint a picture of the actual problem that we were trying to fix. So I'm in innovation. So before you even start to think about solution mode, it's what is the issue, what's the problem you're trying to fix, but also the ripple effect. So because people are living longer, their needs become a lot more complex, and people are not necessarily aging as well with that. Now, this puts a lot more pressure on loved ones, as well as the NHS. These informal carers often in cases come up, they give up working full time and therefore not contributing towards their own pension. And this creates a perpetual cycle as their children then start to have to look after them, etc. So in fact, actually 1.1 million people over the age of 65 are informal carers themselves, representing a staggering 21% of the total number of informal carers. So healthcare tends to be more reactive due to budget cuts and not having the resource. There's a lot more pressure with comorbidities today. In fact, according to the ONS, the number has increased by 1 million in 10 years. And as you know, as we get older, this increases as well. So we're more likely to suffer from either one or more health conditions. But the fact that the UK also has some of the oldest houses in Europe also causes a concern, as people want to stay where their homes have been part of their lives, and where their loved ones have made that nest with them, and they're cherished as well as the memories that they've made. However, homes today weren't built with aging in mind, but in fact, some of our homes today are over 100 years old. They have steep staircases, narrow doors, and they weren't built with wheelchairs in mind. It was actually also staggering to see how many people have falls at home. And if you look at some of the stats on the NHS, they're really alarming. So 1.4 billion is spent every single year on addressing incidents where someone has injured themselves at home. So with falls being one of the primary concerns, particularly for our aging population, it's often the case that after someone has had a fall, it creates this ripple effect. It has had an impact on, it can have an impact on person's confidence, and then overcompensating as well for the injured part of the body, which creates then issues elsewhere. And then all of a sudden the person stops going out as much, they stop using as much energy, and then they really start to slow down. And this can create then other comorbidities, as well as creating terrible concerns for their own mental health. So in fact, falls can kill, and not necessarily immediately after the incident. So how can we prevent falls? So I carried out thousands of hours of research, well, doing it online, as well as carrying out my own qualitative research, as well as attending health roadshows. I went to some tea dances and interviewing residents. And what was really quickly apparent was that no one wants to be associated with being old. People don't typically like the white grab rails. It reminds them of hospitals. In fact, grab rails are associated as well with crime, as it screams out, "I'm vulnerable, come and rob me," kind of thing. That people tend to only get them after they've had an incident. And as mentioned before, this can often be too late. So if you don't install them early enough, there's a 98% chance that you won't go to grab them when you fall, because it hasn't been tuned into your psyche early enough. But actually, it's not just grab rails. There's so many solutions out there already, but often they're designed for old people. So like, for example, stairs is a major issue too, but there aren't many solutions that are available other than what we know as a stair lift, or standard stair lift as an example, which would actually disable you if you had it fitted too soon. And the alternative for someone is to either move their bed downstairs in their living room or sleep on the sofa because they can't get upstairs. I mean, we've witnessed people duct taping doors shut upstairs because they can't afford to heat upstairs as well, which it only exacerbates the situation. But there you have this ripple effect, as they're then not using their do-it-yourself gym, if you like, at home. But actually loneliness and isolation is an epidemic, and it's actually a major concern, a public health challenge. And apparently it's as dangerous as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. I can't remember where I heard that, but it was quite an alarming way of putting it, which is why keeping active, being mobile and social is really important as we age. And then finally, not everyone will go to get the help when they need it. And the number of people with unmet needs is continuing to rise. So 2 million people, older people in the UK, have unmet needs. So it's really key to be able to access people before they have an incident. So I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to share with you a video that really encapsulates this programme, and it will give you an understanding of what the programme was all about, how we delivered it, you know, how we measured its success as well, and what the customers said too. If I can click on this, can someone give me a nod or a thumbs up just to say that you can hear it as well?
You can.
I'm Ceri Roberts, a Strategic Innovation Manager at E.ON UK, and I'm leading the Trailblazer for the Homes for Living programme. In 2018, the Department of Bays announced a £300 million investment to support the UN's Decade of Healthy Ageing Collaborative. This being a global campaign to improve the lives of people, their families, and the communities in which they live. Even though we are living longer, if our home or the environment isn't supporting us, our health will decline and we will struggle to live those longer years in good health. This puts much more pressure on an already stretched government and healthcare system. 10% of homes today have a Category 1 hazard, and that's an immediate risk to a person's health and well-being. So in fact, the homes that we live in can be a dangerous place to be. The NHS spend £1.4 billion every single year on addressing the needs of people who come through accident and emergency, and that's a result of cold, damp, mould, but also slips, trips and falls. Recent stats suggest that 1 in 3 people in hospital today can't be discharged because their homes are not suitable for them to go back to. So as part of the £300 million investment, UK Research and Innovation set up a £98 million fund on behalf of the government, which they called the Healthy Ageing Grand Challenge. The mission was for people to enjoy an extra 5 independent years by 2035 and narrow the experience gap between the richest and the poorest. E.ON UK were one of 6 businesses that took part in the tender process. We secured £6 million in funding, which was then match funded by E.ON, and the Homes for Living programme was born.
Hi, I'm Andrew Kingston. I'm a senior lecturer in the epidemiology of ageing at Newcastle University and a chartered statistician. Worked here for over 15 years in ageing research and very passionate about the health of older people.
So you might ask, what can an energy company do to help in this space? E.ON UK have access to almost 10% of the UK population, so whether that be through our own customer base or delivering energy company obligation. But as we're already in the homes of customers, there's a great opportunity to us to deliver a much more joined up solution linking energy efficiency and health, and offer a whole house solution that joins up all the needs of the customer. We designed a model based on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, starting from the basic needs of being able to heat your home. The idea was to get together a suite of solutions to improve people's lives so that they can continue to live as independently as possible. This is about joining up solutions and collaborating with public and private sectors so that we can future-proof our properties and support people sooner so that they don't have an accident in the first place.
It's vastly underestimated in terms of how big an issue the ageing population is in terms of how we support them. Although we can help people age in place, what we want to do is also increase the quality of life. We designed an evaluation strategy around understanding where somebody was now in terms of their health, and if we began to intervene in their homes, could we track changes in those metrics of health?
We carried out questionnaires before the products were fitted, and then 3, 6 and 12 months after. We learned some really valuable information. So some people were sleeping downstairs because they couldn't get up the stairs. Loneliness was a much bigger problem. It was also so important to give people the autonomy to cook for themselves. There was a significant amount of people with comorbidities that prevented them from being as mobile.
My name's Paul. I'm 71 years old. In 2015, I was seriously ill. I had life-threatening illness, which I wasn't expected to survive. I beat all their expectations. I beat it and I came out. The quality of life was basically nil. And I had a phone call from E.ON Homes for Living.
Well, my name is Frances Levette. I live in Melton Mowbray, and I've lived here for about 40 years now. in the same house. This house is very special to me because it was the second house that my husband and I bought together. I've got glaucoma, which is an eye condition. It's quite an aggressive gene that I've got, and I've needed several eye operations to preserve my sight. I got to know about the support that was available when somebody rang me up from E.ON.
E.ON have been delivering solutions to customers' homes for years. However, having conversations around someone's health was a significant step further in understanding the real relationship between a person's home and how it can support them to live better and be much healthier. So we brought on board Invisible Creations, and these included a toilet roll holder, a plant pot holder, corner shelf, a mirror and a shower seat. They were all with built-in handrail supports. We then offered the Stair Steady, a more accessible product that supports people to get up and down the stairs. There was then the Pippa Hobbs safety device that tells you if your food has been left unattended and is about to burn. We offered the Amazon Echo. This helps people to connect with digital services as well as have a chat with a loved one. And then finally, the Fitbit. So this encourages people to keep active by counting steps, reporting on sleep, but it also encourages people to reach just even the small goals.
So I think this is a unique, very, very unique in terms of an energy giant delivering these products. But by and large, a huge success, I think, for both Newcastle University and for E.ON. And we've seen some real positive impacts. We've seen huge improvements in autonomy overall. So people were re-abled to do activities alone. People who are high dependency, we've seen a 14% increase in people who shifted back to complete independence. It's a huge shift in terms of cost to social care, but also in terms of the quality of life for individuals. If we then scale that to England, we estimate in 2025 it will be around about 1.7 billion. And then if we were to project to 2035, which is when the Aging Grand Challenge was set for by 2035, and looked at the number of people who are projected to be high dependency and applied that recovery, probably around about £2.88 billion saving in social care.
Delivering solutions in this way has never been done before, but we scaled these solutions and delivered over 5,000 products to 2,500 homes.
The Stair Steady has been the greatest thing in my life that has helped me. Now I can go upstairs standing up, knowing that I'm not going to fall down, knowing that I'm not going to pass out, and coming down, I know that if I fall, the Stair Steady won't let me fall downstairs.
I was very keen to have the grab rails in the bathroom. I felt quite insecure with my balance. The Stair Steady I've also had on the stairs. I've got two older sisters. One is blind and crippled and can't manage to come here, but she visited me here and she got up the stairs to the toilet using the Stair Steady. That made me so happy to be able to have my sister visit.
If E.ON hadn't put these measures in, I'd have probably, just given up. They're not just gadgets. They are actually helping me live. They are a lifeline for me.
We've seen reductions in the levels of loneliness. So people who always reported feeling lonely reduced by over 50%. People who had difficulty using the toilet or couldn't use the toilet independently at baseline reduced by 92%, were able to use it independently. So we've seen some pretty impressive figures so far. It's a passion of mine to observe and help influence the health of older people in a very positive way. E.ON has that on their agenda. For me, the best outcome is something called the compression of functional decline. So you compress that period of dependency or ill health at the end of life right until the very end. So you live for a very long time, very healthily, and you die very quickly. That's essentially my goal and my mission. And by working with people like E.ON and other organisations, that's where I'm headed in terms of healthy life expectancy rather than life expectancy.
I'd like to see businesses use these types of initiatives as part of their social value commitments. I'd like to push for policy change so that energy companies can deliver minor interventions as part of delivering energy efficiency solutions and also retrofitting homes for vulnerable people. The answer is quite simple really, but it's working across boundaries, joining budgets, adapt using insight and also maximise the opportunity around prevention. But first we need to change our view of what ageing really looks like.
Okay, so I hope you enjoyed the film. As I'm sure you can appreciate, not the typical stuff that an energy company normally does, but some really great outcomes there, and hearing from our customers as well on how it's changed their lives, and how important it is for these sorts of initiatives to really make that impact on scale. Even some customers, you know, the number of people that actually said they were suicidal because of how they were living currently, and weren't willing to have the typical solutions that were available through our health service. And this isn't in any way speaking ill of the work that our NHS and health service do, because it's phenomenal work, but with the budgets and resource that they have, there's only so much they can do. And this is why I'm really trying to push for other businesses to get involved. But just to summarise, so the programme itself, which was called Homes for Living, and as I mentioned there, it was modelled around the theory based around Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and starting from those basic needs of being able to heat your home. So if you've ever lived in a cold home, you'd understand. And now I grew up in a council house with no heating upstairs. And me and my sister, I remember this very well, we would draw pictures on the ice on the inside of our windows. So my father died when I was quite young, but just witnessing my mum, even at a really young age, being single, she suffered with arthritis, and how she really struggled. And that wasn't just physically, it was also mentally too. It's actually debilitating. But in year one, it was around delivering that minimal viable product, an MVP, of a package of invisible creations, adaptations to customers who came through E.ON through our eco route, so energy company obligation. And the eligibility was exactly the same as eco, so low income, they were on benefits, and we offered 4 invisible creations adaptations. So that was one package. So when I talk about delivering 5,000 solutions, one package consisted actually of 4 products. But this was also installed for free, and there was no obligation at all for customers to move over to E.ON. But these were delivered to thousands of homes across England, so we could learn about what other primary concerns of our ageing residents. And then from year 2 onwards, taking those learnings to expand the solutions offerings, again, all for free, but this included around tech and iterating as we learned new insights along the way. But surprisingly, there was actually quite a number of people that were tech savvy in our older generations. But for the number of people that weren't digitally connected, we helped them to get to where they needed to be, make the most out of the new products, and provided them with follow-up calls. But just interestingly, just to share a very, very quick story about one lady that I met when I went to a tea dance in Nottingham, and she was 80, and I did a qualitative interview with her, and we went through just some generic questions, but they were open on purpose, so I really wanted to understand what a typical day looked like for her. And when I got to the digital, and I purposefully used the language in a way that was what we typically use today. So are you digitally tech? Do you have technology? Do you use anything that's digital? And the first thing she said was, look, I don't need you or anyone telling me, or I don't want you selling me anything, because I'm not, no, I'm just asking you, this is just part of the questionnaire. She's like, I've survived this long now, I don't need it, and etc. But when we got to the very end of the interview, and then we got chatting, and she mentioned that she'd got a grandson in New Zealand. I thought, wow, that's amazing. So how do you keep in touch with him? And she proceeded to get out this enormous handbag, and it had to be so big to carry her iPad around with her. And she started to share with me, flicking through the pages and showing me how she uses Facebook, she uses FaceTime, she does all her jigsaws on there. And I says, but you're not digital. She went, oh God, no. So what I came to realise, as well as through the programme, that it's actually the language that we use as well is really critical. Don't assume. Anyway. So the majority of the installs were delivered in the mainland, but the critical thing here was joining up and creating that collaboration with public and private sectors that really enhanced the impact. And we had phenomenal support from local authorities, their social services teams, their occupational therapist teams, the NHS, and also the energy charities too, because actually energy charities act almost like a triage. So customers come through to them regardless of their energy supplier, really wanting to have their basic needs met. But it turns out actually they had further things that they needed support with. We even have referrals from the NHS health service, GP practices. So it really demonstrated the willingness from health services to get involved as well. And just from these numbers here, with over 2,400 health questionnaires that were carried out, customers were really bought into the journey and could see what we were trying to do, and were really supportive, you know, in terms of carrying on that health questionnaires and insight from them. But I'd really like to share with you briefly about the evaluation methodology, which was carried out by Dr. Andrew Kingston that you saw on the film. But the uni were absolutely imperative to this research programme, particularly as they are known around the world for pioneering ageing research and innovation, and really wanted to demonstrate the impact that we had through a longitudinal study, so that period of time. Now, this chart on the slide shows ADLs, which stands for Activities of Daily Living. And if you've not heard of this before, ADL assessments have been going on for about 60 years, I think even more, but they're used during healthcare assessments. And some of the OTs, I think I've seen messages come through on the call, be aware of these. But there are 15 markers that are listed on the left-hand side of the chart that assess whether somebody is able to live independently in their own home. Now, believe it or not, these activities actually decline in an order. And one of the first things to go is not being able to cut your own toenails. If you can't cut your own toenails, you can't bend down or get your feet, close enough, you're less likely to be able to wear your shoes comfortably, you're less likely to walk around the house or even leave the house. And that's when I talk about ripple effect. But the questionnaires were carried out by a designated project team at E.ON, with the 15 questions being asked. So can you feed yourself? Can you dress yourself? Get in and out of bed? And on a scale of 1 to 5, how are you able to do that? And that way then Dr. Andrew Kingston could assess the shift in people's abilities over time. Now, the idea is to shift the trajectory of ageing, which typically follows the downward curve that you can see on the chart there. And as Andrew mentioned on the video, it's so that people decline in health much later on and are able to live their lives, their longer lives, more healthily. So for us to receive comments such as the ones on the screen, and these were just a few from customers, it really did start to demonstrate that an energy company, and so this isn't just about E.ON, I'm trying to push for all or any kind of large businesses that have got access to homes to really create that, have an opportunity to really create that social and societal impact. Move on to the next slide. So just to give you an overview, just a quick snippet of here are the ADL measures taken from the baseline of 1,200 customers. And as you can see, cutting toenails, shopping and walking 400 yards are one of the first things to go in terms of decline in health. But we didn't just capture that, we also captured things like deprivation index, property type, the number of people in the household, the location. We also captured things like general health, like life, quality of life, illnesses. We also captured indices of health, such as dependency levels, whether someone uses assistive devices, if somebody had formal care, what their level of loneliness was like, what their level of comfort, but then also digital technology and also physical activity. But the big question is, should we be doing this? So should an energy company be doing this? And quite honestly, the answer is probably not, because it's not our field of expertise. However, can we do this? and yes. So I'm just going to explain a little bit more about the sustainability of this programme and how we're really pushing for this for energy companies, not just E.ON again. I keep pushing that point because it's really, really key. So as we know, we can't function as a charity. So we really do need to understand how providing free solutions like we did in Homes for Living can sustain. And in terms of where we are now, we created a hypothesis, we proved that it worked, and we developed a blueprint for the entire end-to-end journey of delivering solutions in this way. So again, I would really encourage businesses to consider this type of opportunity because they're not always overly obvious, but here are some ideas that we're also exploring. So first one on the top left is around tenders that we bid for. So there is a percentage that we contribute at cost towards social value. So I think we used to call this social corporate responsibility, but social value is typically delivered through things like we offer things like graduate schemes, providing employment and supporting charities and things like that. But I'd really like to see more solutions cover the broad spectrum across the ageing demographic and abilities as well. But typically businesses use the TONS framework. So there's a little picture of it there. There's 5 big circles, and this is around themes, outcomes and measures. And that's how we are monitored and how we manage the delivery around the agreed deliverables. But at E.ON, we're really working hard to focus our key social value deliverables as well by targeting the areas that really need the support. So we've been working with the Purpose Coalition to build the People, Power and Purpose report. I don't know if you've seen it, it is available on the public domain, and it shares our 15 purpose goals, which health and well-being is now one of them. But on the other side of the slide, we're also looking at the future of eco, so our energy company obligation, and being part of those early discussions with government to see how we can inform future policy and potentially offer this whole house solution that goes beyond energy. But connecting budgets with local authorities, maybe even supporting on the disabled facilities grants and that type of thing, so that we can really address some of those concerns for our vulnerable customers as early as possible, so they don't have to then wait until they get to see their doctor or get to go on the NHS after a fall. But finally, we're also exploring our able to pay market within our residential business to bring together proposals for connecting this whole package of solutions that addresses the needs of the customer. So finally, I've just put a slide here on some of the other ways if you want to find out more about Homes for Living, or you're interested in having a look at the white paper, which was written by Newcastle University, you're really welcome to get in touch. So my LinkedIn QR code is on the slide as well, but we can share these details in the slides, I think Jen, you were saying after the call. But just to quickly share as well that I'm also leading on an energy on prescription programme, which is similar to the fantastic work carried out by Energy Systems Catapult, which looks at customers who have existing health conditions and run the risk of getting worse over the winter months, which then increases the risk of going into hospital, but also those people that are receiving treatment in hospital that could otherwise have treatment at home if their home was warm or they could afford to run the equipment, such as dialysis as an example. And we ran a pilot of 50 Homes for Living customers in the late last year and through to April this year, but I'd be happy to share more about that once we've launched the scale programme later this year. So I'm going to end there. Appreciate there's an awful lot to go through. I'm just going to stop sharing and hand back to you, Jen.
Thank you, Ceri. That was fantastic, and I'm sure we'll all convey our thanks for you delivering that presentation. The video itself I find is really powerful, the case studies and hearing from the people themselves, but also actually from my perspective, seeing the actual the grab rails, the stair, that could walk down the stairs. They are life-changing to some people, like you say, and it's fantastic to see that, aesthetically. I saw there was a comment on the side about people not wanting them in their properties because of aesthetic reasons. Obviously, they integrate really well and they don't take up much space, and they just mean that people can get the rest of their house back. But I think particularly from me, sorry, Ceri, just to say, one of the things I thought that was really, firstly, grab rails the link to crime. I thought that was really interesting to hear that connection.
Yeah.
It's not one that I've heard before. So,
Mm.
but as you can see, you can understand the fear that people have in associating the two. So that was really interesting. And exactly what you said about the lady with her iPad carrying it around when she thought she was digitally excluded. It's, as you say, it's about the language, isn't it? And it's about how we communicate with people in a language that's suitable for them and that they can convey with. There are some comments. I've been keeping an eye on them in there. Kevin, pick up your comment around standing charges. I'm not going to put that to Ceri today. That's not what we're here to talk about. We are aware, obviously, of the debate around standing charges. And I'm sure we can put you in touch with somebody if you want to take that forward. But we're here to talk about the Homes for Living project. So I just want to pick up on that one. But some really good comments there around personal circumstances and recommendations for different aids for different residents and family members. Does anybody want to come on camera? Does anybody want to ask Ceri a question? We've got about 10-15 minutes if there's any questions that people want to put to Ceri about the project or the presentation, or comments that they want to put forward. This is the awkward silence part where I have to sit and conjure you all to say something.
A question in the chat there, Jen, which is from Katie Welsh, who says, I would love to know if we could engage with E.ON prescription link with our citywide referral network.
Yeah, so City on Prescription, is that an energy systems catapult programme, just out of interest?
You're there, Katie, to answer that.
Katie there, able to come on and ask the question in person?
Either way, I'd be really happy to connect. So I'll send you my details after the call. And, you know, this is something that we trialled initially in a short pilot, which was across Staffordshire. So I created a working group across, we had public health, integrated care board, we had people that were care assessors. I saw mentioned there about an assessor. We also had, you know, a whole consortium of people that were just looking at the feasibility, and what we wanted to do was actually measure the impact. So could we actually see a reduction in the number of visits in hospitals? But I carried out an evaluation using the WellBe, which is slightly subjective, because it's all about how someone feels rather than actually seeing the reduction in the number of visits. So we're not quite there yet. It's all about data sharing agreements and stuff, which gets really complicated when you're dealing with people's personal health information and sharing that with an energy company. So we're just trying to get over that hurdle. But I'd be really happy to connect after the call.
Brilliant, thank you, Ceri. Excuse me, we've got two people who've got their hand up, and then I've seen the question that's in the chat. So Emma, can I come to you first? Could you just tell us where you're from, and then ask your question for Ceri?
Oh, hi, yeah, thank you. So Emma Padgett, and I work as West Sussex Fuel Poverty Coordinator. I'm hosted at Arran District Council down in the South Coast. I was just wondering, that all sounds really interesting. It's lots of things that we pick up, the home energy visitors that go out in our area pick up. But I just wondered if there was sort of plans to kind of incorporate that, embed that a bit more within the overall within E.ON rather than the pilots. Because I was just thinking there's lots of engineers that go out. Obviously, you've got the installers, a part of ECO. There'd be kind of opportunities there for them to be aware of making referrals to OTs, etc.
Absolutely, thank you. That's a really good question, Emma. So that's stuff that I have been investigating, because you're right, you know, as we're in the homes of these people, if we're delivering energy efficiency solutions, could we fit these products? Now, at the moment, you know, any E.ON energy engineers are not trained, as it were, to install health solutions. So I think that we'll have to open a procurement opportunity for, you know, the relevant parties to get involved and install those. So it would need to be a separate visit. But even still, it comes back to the question, which is really, really tough to say this, but, you know, E.ON are not a charity, and this is where it gets really difficult. So where does this money come from? And I'm pushing those boundaries like you wouldn't believe. But, you know, at the same time, our E.ON Next business is really really keen on supporting, particularly those most vulnerable, those, the aging demographic that are really stuck. And we do offer schemes, and we do have budgets in some cases where we can really go above and beyond the energy needs. So we have things like the energy what's it called now? It's gone out of my head. The energy fund, which is where we have money that has been left on customers' accounts. We're not allowed to bank that. That goes into an account which is managed by an external provider. That's after chasing for so many years. If we're not able to get this money back to customers, it goes in a pot, which we can then offer things like white goods through eligibility still. But again, I think the strongest route at the moment is through that social value, and then also lobbying, so that government can actually allow us to deliver this as part of our obligation. I don't know if that's helpful, Emma, but again, if you would like to connect and learn more, or how I can help you and just share some of this insight, I'd be really, really honoured to do that.
Oh, thank you very much, Ceri. Yeah, that's great. I'll reach out. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. I think you've actually answered the question that's in the chat. So before I come to Meg, the question was around, will the scheme likely to be continued? And I think you've answered that, Ceri, is that it's obviously fund independent and how we roll that forward. Is there anything that you would want to add on top of that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll keep saying it and I'll keep banging that drum, but this isn't necessarily for E.ON. This is about getting other businesses to take up the challenge and really think about the opportunities that it presents to them by linking businesses together. Apple, that didn't develop in one day, but they've diversified the solutions. Not saying that's probably the best example, but it's about, businesses really thinking about what demographic do they target, what's their USP in ours is the fact that, as you saw on the slides, 10% of the UK population, we're in their homes. And for me, rather than just fitting a boiler and central heating, not just because there's a lot involved in that, but we have our cup of tea and then we leave. It's almost like there's a huge space there to be able to either signpost other services and really get in this space. So I think it doesn't just apply for energy companies. There's water companies. There's people that fit your telephone connections and all sorts of stuff. And so, as I mentioned, there's a blueprint here. So if anybody's interested, I'm also, as I mentioned, lobbying. I'm working, trying to get some headway through to DESNZ to see is there opportunity to hand this over, for other businesses to take up the challenge. And I'm also a member of the Prime Minister's Champion Group as well. So I work with Angela Rippon and Jeremy Hughes. So we meet every quarter to talk about dementia, and that's another avenue as well. But this is about really, really pushing those boundaries and coming left field. So I'd really encourage anyone to try and get involved.
Excellent. Thank you, Ceri. Meg, you've got your hand up. Could you just tell us where you're from and then ask your question, please?
Yes, good afternoon. I'm from Search Newcastle, which is in the West End.
Yeah.
I'm the Benefits and Energy Advisor. This is just a two-part question. A lot of my clients that I see, their rent and their energy is combined by the landlord. And so how would they qualify for these small tested assistance if the landlord was using E.ON, but it hasn't been cascaded to them individually because it's in their rent? How would they, or how would we be able to assist them with that? Mm-hmm. And secondly, if they pay one fuel to one supplier like British Gas and then one supply for E.ON, would they qualify still?
Yeah, so thank you. That's really interesting point you've made there. So first of all, this wasn't only available for E.ON customers. This was available for absolutely anyone. And in the early days, it was any age, because we really wanted to understand, would young people, not necessarily people with disabilities either, but would young people get involved in this? But also, it was part of the eco. So as you know, energy company obligation, we deliver energy efficiency solutions regardless of what energy company you're with, and they don't need to switch over. So we use that as an entry point, if you like, to offer homes for living. So if you've got energy efficiency, if you qualify for that and having your cavity wall loft insulation, you're also eligible to have these products. But then we changed it slightly later on because we really wanted to understand the impact on older people. So we changed it for people to be over 50. But in the same instance, you know, at the moment, this programme has come to an end because it ended in April. But again, that's part of my sustainability, you know, mission, is to really try and push this so it can continue. The other question which you mentioned about tenants, this was available to anyone. And a bit like, you know, it depends on what your tenancy agreement is. A bit like if you're putting up a bookshelf and you're drilling holes in the wall, what is your tenancy agreement? And if it's a similar sort of thing. So, you know, grab rails, they can be removed and holes can be filled in. So we did have people that were renting properties, but the products were theirs to keep, not the landlord. So they could be removed and taken with the next property, if that made sense.
Super,
I don't know if that
thank
answered your
you.
question.
Yeah, thank you. It's just that some of the landlords don't cascade the benefits of the energy down to the client, you know. So if they've
Yeah.
got 6 clients and they've all got one rent in the one property,
Mhm.
they don't always cascade the benefits down.
Yeah, well, this wasn't advertised to landlords. This was advertised to anyone. It was on social media, it was on Facebook, it was on our webpage, so anyone could actually apply. But obviously it would depend on that tenancy agreement.
Thank you, Ceri.
Meg.
Thanks, Meg, for your question. Ceri, before I come to Molly, somebody's asked if you're happy to share your contact details. I know your LinkedIn is on the last page. If I click go now, are you happy I could put your email address in this
Absolutely,
chat
yeah,
so
please
people have it
do.
immediately?
Mhm.
Perfect, there you go. I wanted to just double check before I shared all your contact details. So
No,
yeah,
that's
it's in the
good.
chat
Just
now
check
for
there,
anybody.
yeah.
That it's got Ceri's email address, and that's the website. But as I say, that the presentation will be shared, and there's some really good links on the final page of the presentation, so you'll be able to access those. Molly, I'll come to you next.
Thanks, Jen. Hi, Ceri. Thanks so much for the presentation today. It was so interesting. And yeah, I was really, like same as Jen said, really moved to see those kind of testimonials from people in their homes and being able to reduce the isolation element. Apologies if I missed this because I did very quickly have to take a call during the presentation. That's why I wanted to ask. But did you have any contact with any occupational therapy or hospital discharge teams about the kind of Sorry, I think I got muted there.
Sorry, that was my fault, Molly.
No, don't worry. Harsh judgment on that question, Jen.
Sorry, start again, my mistake.
So
No.
Contact with physiotherapy.
No, so occupational therapy or hospital discharge. My thinking was when you're talking about the challenge for longevity of the scheme, having those proven health benefits could mean it falls somewhere within the local authority space or the NHS. Obviously, like you said in the presentation, the NHS has an awful lot on its own plate, so it's not easy to add things, but obviously every bit of evidence helps in that argument.
Yeah, absolutely. It's again, so many really great questions. This was a real contentious issue because it's around the ethical liability as well. What we absolutely didn't want to do is create extra demand on the NHS that they're then having to come and fix in something that an energy company has created. So this, as you can imagine, it went through some rigorous safety and due diligence from our end, which is months and months and months, and even ethical panels getting involved as well. So just to let you know that just even in terms of keeping stakeholders included, I worked very closely with a lead geriatrician as well in Staffordshire Hospital. Trying to forget his name. Sorry, I'm going through menopause as well, which really doesn't help with some of this stuff. Particularly helps with aging and being able to understand from people's perspectives. But anyway, but yeah, so a lead geriatrician where we formed together a bit of a working group. I shared with quite a number of people that were occupational therapists, physiotherapists, that multidisciplinary team, if you like, around, and in general, when it came to working with the NHS, the room was quite divided between those OTs that said, no, there absolutely has to be the science and measurements around where products need to go, which is absolutely correct. There has to be a process. So I'll come back to that. But then the other room, which is, look, if we don't get products in people's homes, and they're in a place that's suitable to them, it feels in the right position, we're not going to be able to prevent falls. So coming back to the whole science around this, we worked with a company called ProCare. Now, ProCare were a shower and bathroom, adapted bathrooms and shower, bathroom and kitchen specialists, and they have an occupational therapist that helps them with the whole customer journey, the whole technical survey process as well, and everything. So photographs are taken, and that is fed back then to the head office, where the occupational therapist will go through the photographs and the measurements and stuff. But ultimately, when we go around to customers' homes, we can advise and say, look, you can't really have that product there because it will create a twist, these weren't installed by E.ON, they're installed by ProCare, and they installed products for the health service already in the NHS. So the advice was given, but ultimately it had to come down to the discretion of, the installer and the customer. So if the customer said, no, I want it there, you could say, look, if you put it there, it could cause this, but ultimately it was up to the customer, and we had to sign I forget what you call it, a discretionary statement, which said, look, I'm happy with where the product's been fitted, but there were also terms and conditions around, our obligation as well as the customer's obligation as well. And also, if a customer wasn't of sound mind, is that a way to say it? So they had a carer involved, we would have them involved as well to help support those conversations so the customer understood what was going on. I hope that helped.
Yeah, Molly's on mute, but it wasn't my fault that time. But yes, I think it's really important, Ceri, isn't it, that you can you have these products, you're able to how the manufacturer would like them to be used, but ultimately, if a customer believes that they're going to use it in a different way or in a different position or that type of thing, then it's giving them all of the information and letting them back to personal choice, isn't it? And we need to make sure, otherwise it's just going to be another decorative item that they'll not use anyway.
Absolutely.
So therefore it's not being utilized in the correct way. There's a couple of questions in the chat. Firstly, Owen has asked whether some of the the products that were demonstrated in the film are sorry, I get my teeth in. Whether the products that were in the film are available commercially for organisations. So I think the grab rails with the flower pots in, those type of things, I presume they're all on the market.
So they're all on the market already. They're designed by a company called Invisible Creations, and funnily enough, it came from a housing association idea, because when housing associations are going into people's homes and ripping it out and putting in adaptations, the old ones, because the new tenants didn't like the look and aesthetics of these adaptations, they created a project called Invisible Creations, the Greenhouse Project, and they created these Invisible Creations products, and they were so popular and so liked. They've now been launched on the market, and ProCare do manufacture them, but you can buy them online. Just type in Invisible Creations.
That's fantastic, and it just makes people feel more comfortable in their homes, doesn't it? So there's a comment here from Anne in our benefits team to say that actually, so NEA have a current relationship with the Revival with the hospital discharge sorry, I cannot speak today. The hospital discharge team at Revival in Stoke, who refer clients into our benefits team here at NEA. So that's a direct relationship that we have. And there's a question from Helen Richmond, who is in your area, I believe. So she said, it feels like the initiative would fit very well with Nottinghamshire County Council's Handy Person Adaptation Service, which is funded through the Better Care Fund. And she was wondering if you'd had a conversation with them, or perhaps Helen can connect if there's possibility to do so.
So, and we had a great relationship as well with the Nottingham Energy Action, and is that right? But yeah, absolutely, be really, really keen to get some conversations going there. If I can help or pass over some of the insight that we've learned as well, and connect with the handyman that you mentioned. Absolutely.
That sounds brilliant. I can't see any more hands and I can't see any more questions, but we're nearly at a full hour. So I said to Ceri, these things always go either as short or as long as the questions we have. So thank you all for being so interactive and coming back with some questions. And thank everybody for joining. I'm sure you'll share my thanks for Ceri for coming along today, giving up her lunch break, sharing her presentation. It's a fantastic project and one that I hope we can support in getting to other organisations as the blueprint, as you mentioned at the start. So just to reiterate our thanks, but also to reiterate to everybody on the call, we will be sharing the presentation, so you'll have that later today. My colleague Brian will be able to share that to everybody that attended. And yeah, have a lovely day, stay warm, and it's obviously Fuel Poverty Awareness Day tomorrow, and it's the nation's biggest housewarming this week, so I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't give a shameless plug to those two activities taking place on behalf of NEA as well. So thanks everybody for coming. Lovely to see you all, and have a great day. Ceri, thanks again.
Lovely to speak to you all. Thank you.
Thanks, bye.